So I'm just sharing my experience with this one, and I'm going to tell you right now that homeless services in California are getting quite interesting. So after they have put me through the ringer for over a year now, and I've done all the options that they're telling me to do, and my migraines have gotten significantly worse, and my GI conditions are getting worse, and every single one of my conditions is getting worse from everything that they're asking me to do now. And I was already considering this because I've done it in the past where I've gone back to school when I've got desperate enough and just learned a new career altogether. The thing is, I'm not well enough. And you guys will tell us to go back to school, and then you'll put us in debt with economic, with loans and shit like that if we're trying to finish a career. And if we just do the basic minimum, and because of our health we're failing, which is what happened to me last time, we lose financial aid anyways. So now their big fat suggestion is for me to go back to school and get some of that financial aid money. That's your recommendation as homeless services. And I've heard it more than once. But the fact that you keep repeating it tells me that you guys want me to work the system. The very system that people keep opening up investigations during political times to fuck people like me over because of shit like this. Everything these people tell me is workarounds the system. Well, you got to learn to work your system. No, dude. This is what's exactly wrong with the system. It's working exactly the way it's meant to, which means that if you work the system and you are successful in it and you don't get sick again, then the system won't flag you as working the system. But if you're unsuccessful and you owe student debt and you owe all this other debt for medical shit and things like that, that's the moment the system puts a big fat eyeball on you. You're literally saying that a person's existence depends on their willingness to re-educate themselves or find employment, whether or not it's affecting their physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional bodies. You're saying that the human race and the capitalistic society that we're creating here in the United States says your life is not valuable to us and you don't deserve housing or food unless you're willing to be employed in whatever we ask you to do, even though it's going to make you sick, even though it's already proving to make you sick as you go to our day programs and our suggestions for mental health services. And I won't get into all the bullshit that I've gone through talking to some of these social workers at places like PATH, at places like NAMI. Y'all are weird. Y'all are weird, and there's something wrong with your head. And I get it that you're training people to be peer support, and you're trying to train people to talk to people the way they would to somebody who's going through their situations, but then don't have fucking ex-drug addicts doing intakes for disabled people. Like, just don't. Because we're already having a rough enough time, and we're asking you for the devices and shit that we need so that we can do what you're asking us to do. And you're telling us that our life and our ability to eat and sleep somewhere safe doesn't matter unless we do what you ask us to do, even though it's affecting us. Not because you're trying to help us, mind you, because I've been fighting for my scooter since December so that I wouldn't be passing out in the road. And that's the thing, that our society creates entitled individuals like the asshole next to me that keeps turning up their music every time they feel they need attention, because they really need attention. So they got to draw in that attention of everybody in this public space because they're in need of attention. And this shit happens within these foundations and these services because they want to teach us to do things, but they themselves don't know how to do them with integrity, because they're asking you to work the system instead of finding ways to fix the system, finding ways to create grants and not workarounds to fix the actual system, because there's a huge gap for disabled people. But because I'm getting so sick, now we got to find the workarounds and we got to work this system. And if I do end up going to school and for any fucking reason the system tries to come after me for getting that financial aid, if I get sick again and I'm unsuccessful, I'm going to remind you guys of these videos, because I've been recording my process throughout this time around as a homeless person, because I wanted to demonstrate what y'all have put me through in the past. And the thing is that because you don't even put your intake notes in properly, there's not the right information or even record in some cases that I asked for help. Why do you tell us to report the abuse and ask for help if this is what you're going to do to disabled people? Adult Protective Services and every other service that is meant to protect the disabled people in our community have failed us time and again, not only with housing, but food. Because the services that they offer you, like NAMI services, feed you shit that made my ulcers worse and made me sick again. And this is what I mean. I don't want to get into it because this is what y'all approve. This is what Medi-Cal approves as assistance for us. This is where our money is going, to foundations and associations that have to save as much money as possible because of these money crises, that they have to feed us foods that are making us sick, instead of joining with local farms to get donations. Because if you do that, then you can't get the government funding and grants. You have to prove that there's the expense. So if you start accepting donations of healthy food, you don't get that extra money. Even if that money doesn't get allocated and used properly for the homeless services. If you wanted to do better, NAMI, you would do better. So would every single one of these nonprofits. Because it's bad enough that you're already having to apply for all these grants to fill in the gaps that our very system should be filling, to on top of it, not even be able to work with your local farms and local services to change this. Because these apartment buildings and the way they allocate affordable housing, it's not affordable. It's a lie, the affordability lie. It's a loop that keeps us homeless and sick. You don't know how many people on the lot I've met that are going through recovery of medical conditions that because they didn't have savings, they lost their home and now are having to fight eviction notices on top of trying to heal from these procedures the same way I was. And I didn't have eviction notices, but my family did everything possible to mistreat me until I left the house on my own, as they've done before. Which is exactly what homeless are. This is why everyone's like, why do you always talk about your family? Because the comparison is real. It's the mirror I keep telling you guys about. The same way society teaches people to get their disabled members back on the street. It's why a lot of mental ill people are on the street, because that is what crisis teams encourage them to do. Show us that your family member has problems and needs help. Just don't tell us how you're doing it. That's exactly how these homeless services work and these foundations. And it's time for true investigations or true change to happen, because you're killing people. And you are responsible for those deaths, whether you want to acknowledge it or not. And that goes for every single person telling people to work the system, not realizing that working the system is exactly what keeps us in these loops for a long period of time. I'm trying to do it the right way this time around so that I'm not stuck in this loop again in a few months when I get sick from going back to school. Because every time I've gone back to college, my autoimmune dysfunctions have gotten out of control because of the stress, which is fine. If I had housing, I could probably manage that. But I can't do that on the street. So, again, we are talking about a fucked up loop that because they couldn't find a loop for disabled people to be able to house them in a timely manner before their conditions get out of control again, which is what's already been happening, now you're trying to find a workaround to work the system, which is fine. If we end up having to do that, that's cool. But this is why I'm keeping video records of all this shit, because y'all are hilarious, which I already said that you guys were going to do this stuff every time it's like, I'm going to do it the way you're telling me to do it, but make sure you have the next step after this when this doesn't work. Make sure you have the next step for me, because this is exhausting and it's literally killing me. It's literally killing my spirit and my will to live. And you can't call that suicidal ideation because you're creating the problem. Housing alone would take that away. Housing on its own, and I'll work my ass off for everything else. But the thing is, I can't even get myself into the apartment because of my income. Even when I had the savings, before I had to spend them on my medical care, because my medical care is being delayed and denied because I'm unhoused. Keep that in mind. Homeless services in San Diego, California. Y'all need to stop. Y'all need to stop and find a true solution, because this is out of control. I love you and have a great day. But again, I'll try what you're saying, and I won't say who's telling me to try it because I don't want to get you in trouble. But understand that eventually it's going to get you in trouble. That you're teaching people to work the system instead of trying to report all of this so the system will actually change. Where the fuck is Gavin Newsom? Where the fuck are you trying to fix this? Because your real estate deals and shit like that is exactly what's causing this crisis. Look at my poor eye. It's getting swollen from my migraine. In real time. Oh my God. Anyways, I gotta take another migraine medication. But this is what I'm saying. This is what you're doing. And then asking me to be out in the world. Asking me to be a joyful part of your society, Gavin Newsom, when you have not come up with a solution for disabled people to be housed in a way where they can afford their housing on their fixed income without having to leave the city away from the medical care. Because on top of that, when they have to pay for our transport, they make your life living hell to prove that you don't need transport, even though you do, because you're putting people at risk driving with these conditions. They don't care. They don't care that they're putting me at risk or anybody else because I'm homeless. The medical complex can't do shit because of the policies created by the very foundations like Kaiser Foundation, Scripps, UCSD, and all of them. Your policies hurt the homeless people and the chronically disabled. And because of the way we're treated in hospitals, we don't want to go to the ER. But if we go to the ER more often, that speeds up our process for housing. Do you see what's wrong with the system? So where the fuck is Gavin Newsom, and where the fuck are these supposable investigations that are going to happen for these nonprofits, and not only these nonprofits, but Medi-Cal itself? Because Medicare keeps trying to fix the problem while Medi-Cal keeps creating problems. I love you and have a great day. And this is just from my experience. I'm not saying that policy is written this way. I'm saying people have dropped the ball a lot, and a lot of mistakes have happened in my case. And because of that, this is my experience. I'm sharing my experience. It's not financial advice. It's not legal advice. It's not advice around all of these nonprofits and foundations. It's just my experience going to these places and how I've been treated in these places. And I can talk about my experience freely because this is how you guys chose to treat me. I get to do that. If you didn't want me to talk about it, do not treat people like this. It's disgusting. It's hard enough for us to ask for help. And when we're finally asking for help, for you to do this to us, you set us way back. You set us way back. Stop asking us to participate in the games that are making us this ill. This is not okay. This is excruciatingly painful. And because my migraines are medicine resistant, there's very few migraine medicine that works, because the thing that I need is darkness and silence. And society doesn't provide that because we have too many entitled assholes, not only in San Diego, but all over our society in the United States. So keep that in mind. I love you and have a great day. Somebody tag Gavin and try to get this out there.